Welcome everyone. For those of you just joining us, if you want to share your screen, please go ahead and do so. I just ask that you keep yourself on mute, just to avoid any kind of ambient noise that is happening. And we'll just give another moment or so to see if we've got some other folks that are going to join us. All right. So we've got, looks like 12 people here this evening. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. People might pop in a little bit later, but we'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Rebecca Hansen. I'm the Executive Director of the Newfound Lake Region Association. I am really glad to see so many folks here this evening. We had a number of other people register, so I'm sure we'll see some more people pop in a little bit. So just, I'm going to give a quick background. I think most of the folks here know about the Newfound Lake Region Association. Our mission is to conserve the Newfound Lake and its watershed. We serve the community. We serve to protect the health of the lake and the watershed. I think since we only have about 12 people here, I think we could probably just have everybody introduce themselves. So if you'd like, and I'll just call on names that I see just to make it go a little more smoothly. We'd love to hear your name, maybe where you live, and anything else quickly relevant to the conversation tonight. So we'll start with Kathy Bird. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bird. I live in Bridgewater over on Woodmore Point, and the community engagement is important to me. I have teenagers and a younger daughter who's in elementary school, and I just think it's really important to make that connection between the lake and the locals.
Karen Bemis, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Karen Bemis. I work for the Newfound Lake Region Association, and I've been there for about 4 years now. I live in Bristol, New Hampshire full-time, and I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you.
Martha.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Martha Twombly. I live in Hebron. I'm on the board of the NLRA and also on the board of the Lakes Region Conservation Trust. Interested in meeting people and learning how to better communicate.
Thanks, Martha. Bob.
Hello, everybody. Bob Martens, Bridgewater. Been up here about 20 years. Love everything about Newfound. And one of the things that I rave about continually is the sense of community we have up here. But as wonderful as it is, I think we could always do better. And I think, uniting us as a team will just make us much more stronger in our efforts. So great to be a part of the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Audrey?
I'm Audrey West. I am the membership manager for the Newfound Lake Region Association. I also serve on the board for the Slim Baker Foundation, and I am a new member on the Alexandria Conservation Commission. I live in Alexandria, and obviously conservation of our natural resources is very important to me.
Thanks, Audrey. Jan, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Jan. Oh, it looks like we still can't hear you. Huh. Looks like you're not on mute, but we can't hear you. If you want to throw your introduction into chat, Jan, I can read it out for you, and we'll move on to Ken.
Hi, I am Ken Weidman. I live in Bridgewater. I have been kicking around this lovely lake since 1962, when my wife brought me up here to meet Mom and Dad in the summer of 1962. Retired here in 2005, and I've been a trustee of the Newfound Lake Region Association since, I think, 2007, but not sure on that date, but it's been a long time.
Barbara.
Hi,
Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara. I also own and operate Riverview Artisans in Bristol Square. I live in Alexandria, born and raised here.
Great. Thanks, Barbara. Dave and Kathy. Or maybe just Kathy.
It is just Kathy. Dave decided not to join me. Hi. I've been coming up to Newfound Lake since 1969 when my parents bought here, and they retired here in '89. Dave and I moved here 7 years ago. I'm on the board of Bristol Community Services, and I'm working on starting a nonprofit in the area, along with another gentleman, Steve Hanser. We're in the early stages. I just love being involved in the community. I retired 3 years ago so I could be more involved, and it's just a great place to live. Thank you.
Jenny. Go ahead.
Okay. Am I muted?
We can hear you.
Okay. My name, how do you get the picture? Is the picture there? Oh, well, doesn't matter. It's best not to see me. Oh, I see. My name is Jenny Tuthill, and I live in Alexandria, and I'm vice chair of the Alexandria Conservation Commission. And we're very committed to conservation. I was just thinking as others talked that my origins with conservation start when I was a child on another lake. My parents were the founders of the WAPWA, which is the White Oak Pond Watershed Association, way back in, I believe, the late 50s, early 60s. And I think they were the first group to have a limit on boats on the lake that couldn't go beyond 12 miles or 12 something horsepower. I don't know. Anyway, it limited the lake activities to quiet pursuits. Anyway, that was a very long time ago. And now we're here in Alexandria and very committed to all issues around conservation. And we've put all of our land in a conservation easement. So we're looking to do more and communicate more throughout our community and further.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. It looks like Jan's still having trouble, but Jan, feel free to throw in any comments you have into chat. We are monitoring the chat function this evening just to make sure that folks that that aren't able to speak are able to get their comments in here. So, all right. Well, so I just wanted to quickly introduce the strategic planning work that we're doing here at NLRA. We, in December, will celebrate the 50th anniversary of our original incorporation in 1971. Kind of an interesting time in environmental history. We see a lot of organizations that started around the same time, also Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, EPA all have origins right around this time. So we were originally incorporated almost 50 years ago. So as you know, as we reflect back in these 50 years, it's kind of hard not to think about the next 50 years as well. So we really want to think about what direction we're heading on as an organization. What's the Newfound we want to see in next year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 50 years? How do we see NLRA playing a role in that future? So we have, we're working in the process with the trustees to generate some direction and vision and goals for our future. So this is the first of 4 workshop discussion sessions we're going to be running. We also have a survey that we're administering as well. I'll put up a link to that at the very end if you haven't already filled this out. But community feedback from our members, our supporters, the business folks in the Newfound area. All this input is really important so we get a handle on what folks are looking for in the future, what they value about Newfound, and what direction we should all be heading in to get there. So just a few ground rules as we move forward. We've got a fairly small group, so I think conversation will be a little easier. The more people that might jump in, the more I might need to facilitate, but I think for now we've got 12 of us here. So if you don't have much to say, I would suggest leaving your mic on mute just to avoid the ambient noise. And you can add comments to the chat. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand. I think we've got a small enough group, so if you want to speak, then you can also just unmute yourself and start speaking as well. So we're looking at, tonight we're looking at community engagement. As I said before, NLRA is a community organization focusing on the health of the Newfound watershed. But tonight I really want to think about our partnerships, who we're working with, where are those partnerships doing really well, where could we use some work. Our partnerships with towns, other organizations, businesses, individuals, other folks that I'm not mentioning in that list, our general community involvement, our volunteer engagement. The purpose of this is to be as conversational as we can. I have some guiding questions that I'd be happy to start listing off, but I'm sure that a lot of folks have ideas and opinions, and so I really welcome you to share whatever questions, comments, concerns, dreams, visions, anything along those lines, and I will keep the conversation on track as needed, but I really would like to open that up. So does anyone have any initial comments, questions, anything, want to get the ball rolling? Does anyone come with some ideas, or I'm happy to start going through my list of discussion prompts. Right. So I would love to hear what folks think about what NLRA's role in, what do you see as NLRA's role within the Newfound community? Any comments, questions? Jenny?
Yeah, no one else is saying anything. I see you guys as the most visible of organizations in the area around the lake activities, conservation, and so forth. I think you're kind of the point organization. And as a result, I think you have a great deal of respect amongst those people who pay attention to it. I think the key is getting more people to pay more attention and have more involvement. But I think your visibility is high, and so is the respect for the organization.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Brittany. I came in a little bit late, so I apologize if I missed something that I should know. But just to follow up on what Jenny said, I guess for me, I feel like NLRA is doing conservation work, protecting our watershed, protecting our lake. And at least for me, I feel like the organization does the work that I know so little about. And for me, I feel okay about that. And I feel happy that, because I don't know everything about what goes into conservation and protecting the lake. It's good to know that there's an organization locally who is doing that.
Great, thank you. Right. Any other comments?
Since Jan's sound isn't working, I did get an email from Jan and Beth, who are both involved with Newfound Pathways, and they had a couple ideas which I thought I would share since Jan's having trouble with her sound. Some of their thoughts include working together to create trails that connect New Hampshire, Audubon's Paradise Point and Ash Cottage to Grey Rocks, working with organizations as well as the town of Hebron and its Conservation Commission to continue to construct a trail from Ash Cottage to Hebron Village, working with the town of Bristol, Bill Dowie, and Newfound Pathways to extend Bristol's multi-use pathway from Mill Stream to the center of town to promote the region's natural, social, and economic resources. Continue to invite Newfound Pathways and other local organizations to participate in your workshops. Reaching out to organizations to help with volunteer efforts for your NLRA's educational work and work party events and vice versa. And promoting the work of local organizations involved in conservation on your website and in your newsletters, which you are currently doing.
Thanks, Audrey. I think since we heard from Brittany from the library, and then that from Newfound Pathways, would love to think about other partnerships that we have already. You know, we work with, we've run some programs a little bit with Slim Baker. We've pulled the Newfound Audubon naturalists out on our Eco Tours boats. We've also done some work with the Circle program, the Mayhew program. What are other, and I'll get to town government and businesses in a little bit, but what are other groups that we should be partnering with, where we should forge stronger partnerships, anything that would strengthen us as a member of the community? Kathy.
And I just don't know the answer to this. Do you partner with the school systems at all? I know you do a great storybook walk now, which is awesome, but what about the high school students and who may have interest in going into some kind of environmental conservancy field? Is any of that done currently?
So we've done a little bit of work with, and I should remind everyone that my tenure with NLA is relatively short. It's been less than a year and a half, but I know that we've participated with some school events just in the past couple of years. I know coming out of the watershed management plan, which kicked off in about 2009, we had a lot of involvement with the Newfound school system. So I think yes, I think there's more work we can do there, and that's certainly on our list, is to really get in touch with teachers, school administrators in the area schools, and certainly with the New Hampton and Holderness School as well, and try and see how we can engage in environmental education. But yes, that's a good one to add as a great partnership potential there. Jenny. Oh, you're on mute.
Does the Newfound school system, particularly the high school, have an environment or conservation club group? I thought I heard that they did. Does anyone know that?
Jenny, I believe that a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, Andrew Vayer, our program manager, did a bunch of work over at the high school in setting up some, I think, gardens and helping them with getting started in some environmental work over there. We have conducted surveys going back a couple of years ago with the then superintendent of schools as to what we might be able to do with them in the future, and that's kind of a subject for another night. But yes, there's some great opportunities for the school systems. And nobody mentioned Tapley Thompson. We partnered with them for years, and Andrew has run a WOW camp. Didn't this past year because of the way the school year started or ended, or I guess started early. But it's a week with the Tapley Thompson kids at various locations around the lake, doing eco tours, spending some time in Grey Rocks, up at Little Sugarloaf, Goose Pond, up in Cardigan, and so that's been a great partnership. And I know, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, we have done some stuff. A few years ago, we had a winter program with the Slim Baker people, and I don't know, either Audrey or Rebecca can expand on what we're doing with them now. But certainly the schools or the towns around around the lake, we have been trying to work with in setting some conservation goals, and particularly in your town in Alexandria, where we could acquire the rights to property that might be developed that are near and very sensitive to the aquifer over there. Tried to work with your guys on the board and Bristol, and I think that's kind of gone quiet for a while, but there's still federal money through the state that's available for that. But so yeah, there's a lot of partnerships that we've been involved in. Back to Slim Baker, either Audrey or Rebecca can probably add a little bit there.
Yeah, we've just started to work a little more closely with them since one of our staff members is on their board, but in trying to see how ways we can partnership in ways that where our missions overlap, because there is a good healthy overlap in the mission of Slim Baker and Newfound and NLRA's mission. So we've talked about as far as organization partnerships, Newfound Audubon, TTCC, Newfound Pathways, Slim Baker. What are other organizations that might not be on our radar that would be important? Because I think that we're only as strong as we are, as strong as the community is. So go ahead, Kathy.
And Karen and I have talked about this recently, and I think it may be on your radar now. I'm not sure how much it was on your radar in the past, but the lake associations and beach associations, there's probably a lot more that they could do, I think, to be involved. And even education, I think the education part is a lot of it, because knowing in the association that my parents were in, people don't understand like the shore, and nor do I, except for what I learned from my parents, but the Shoreline Act and what you can and can't do close to your property, whether it be cutting bushes or trees, or I think there's probably a good amount of education that could probably continue to happen as well.
Yeah, it's something we're definitely looking at. I think we've tried to reach out more to homeowner associations in the past, but now we're trying to make a concerted effort just to look at homeowner associations and provide a different set of resources to them, because they have access to a whole number of other folks as well that might not be receiving our communication. So we have individual members, we have homeowner association members, so trying to reach out to them in a different way and be a resource to them as well. At their annual meetings, they're pulling together large groups of folks. So putting ourselves in front of them in a way that is educating them without trying to tell them what to do. I think trying to be inclusive, and we're all working towards the same goal. Really, this is a special place for a lot of folks. So, thank you.
I had just a thought, thinking back on Audrey's last newsletter, which was just really wonderful and inspiring. And thinking about equity, I wonder if community services would be a good partner. I know maybe 3 or 4 years ago, NLRA the organization received a grant from Eversource to provide eco tours to people for free. Eversource funded that, and the library was a partner. And if I remember correctly, we also worked with community services to try to identify families who don't already have a connection with the lake, maybe families who wouldn't be able to afford to pay for an eco tour out of pocket. So they may be a good organization to think about in the future too.
Great. Martha.
Excuse me. I just had a few thoughts. Another group that we tried to work with in the past, I don't remember if we really accomplished it, is the Boy Scouts. I think there's an active Boy Scouts organization, maybe out of Bridgewater, and their Eagle Scout program may provide some great volunteers or lake hosts. And the other two groups that I think about all the time, as far as reaching further into the watershed, are snowmobile groups and fishermen. This is a very popular fishing lake, and I don't know how much they're involved in the organization or understand everything that's going on.
Yeah, in particular, snowmobile groups rely on large tracts of open space. So land conservation is something, you wouldn't necessarily intuitively think about going to snowmobilers for land protection, but their sport requires lots of open space. And fishermen, anglers, we're all working on this. They need healthy, high quality waters for their sport. So, Ken, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to jump in a minute ago, and I'm afraid I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, I know. Following what Brittany had to say. What was it? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we did a program with the library where you were giving out free passes to anybody who you thought was worthy of it for eco tours, and it had something to do with backpacks and
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, the tours were the what I was referring to with the Eversource grant, and the backpacks, that was a separate partnership. That was wonderful. It was between AMC, Audubon, and NLRA, and the library. The backpacks weren't as successful, or I should say as popular as we had hoped, but we're trying to find different ways to get those out. But NLRA helped us fill a backpack full of guidebooks and different things to try to encourage people to get outside and enjoy our natural resources.
I'd like to give just a couple updates on a couple things that were mentioned, Martha. We actually got a call from the Boy Scouts today, and they're interested in arranging some service projects with us. And of course, so now we will also be reaching out to the local Girl Scout troop to see if they would like to do something similar. So that's in the works as of today. And also, I just wanted to mention our partnership with Slim Baker. We're also partnering with the My Not Sleeper Library, and we've got a lot of great energy and enthusiasm there. And we have discussed the backpacks and other sort of more unique items that we could make available through the library for checkout. So we are looking at potentially revamping the backpacks, or somehow making them slightly more marketable so that more people will use them to get out and enjoy. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Jan wanted to mention logging businesses. She feels it's important that we connect with logging businesses and build relationships there.
Yeah, I'm going to add area foresters to that as well. I think connecting with those folks that have the potential to, we're a steep forested watershed. There's a lot of potential and a lot of economic value in our forests as well, but trying to balance both the economics and and trying to maintain watershed health as well. So that's great. Thanks, Jen.
I would say add landscapers. Landscaping businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we've got some great partners amongst our landscapers that so far, and this is I know we've got Golden Leaf Landscape is one of our business members, and Three Lakes Landscaping based out of Plymouth is currently keeping the Grey Rocks parking lot open for the winter. They did that last year as well. They're doing that free of charge. So we've got some natural partners. Three Lakes, I know, is also a green certified snow pro, so they can use less salt and have less slip and fall liability. So a couple great companies. If I'm missing anybody, that's inadvertent. But those are the ones that come to mind.
Yeah, Simple by Nature is has been a partner for us for a long time, business member. Yep.
Great. So yeah, connecting with them and
I think
helping
Jan
them.
is asking what.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Jan is asking what NLRA is looking for the future, what we're looking for in partnerships.
So I think, I don't know if I have a quick answer to this, but thinking about how we're delivering our mission, how can we strengthen what we do through people that we can work with, through groups that we can work with. So how can we connect people with the outdoors? How can we help to create more stewards of this of the watershed? I think a lot of this can be in joint programming, that we can connect our members to other groups' members. So those are kind of the things that jump off the top of my head right now, but I'll keep thinking about that. So other ideas about how NLRA can leverage partners and partnerships into the future? Jenny? Ooh, you just muted yourself. There you go.
Oh, no. The connections you've mentioned in this discussion are extraordinary. I mean, it's like we're scratching our heads to find more. organizations, people groups, and so forth with whom you can connect. But you don't want it all to be one-stop shop. Like you have a workshop on X, and then you go on to the Scouts and do this, and you go on to the library and do that. You don't want it to be a little island that you had an activity and you're hoping to expand it, and you've sort of left the people with their backpacks or their guidebooks or their wonderful trip on the lake. We want to see something more ongoing and more united. It seems to me that somehow the one look to the future would be that all these groups are somehow connected, as you've just mentioned, more strongly with one another. So they're not, you know, an entity, the Scouts on their own, the library on their own, the, you know what I mean? That is a huge challenge, so that you really end up with a community that's united through their various organizations, groups, or interests. And the focus, of course, is what you've got in your lap, which is the lake and its health and future. And I think that is the real mountain that you're climbing. You've got connections with just about everything, every group that we can, that I can imagine. I mean, you know, when there's nothing left, it seems, and you seem to have done an excellent job of outreach. But how to keep that, not just the ball rolling, but to have it be united is what the future is going to demand. Because without that, you're just a central location, an important entity of the area with these little offshoots, like a star with, you know, blades shining out there, but they're not overlapping with one another enough so that it really affects everybody. So the children you work with need to grow into teens and adults that are also still carrying on the interest, the enthusiasm, or whatever, and that is hard. I mean, that's I think a challenge that will either ensure the future or not.
You're talking about building more of a network instead of just individual connections with folks. So building a true network.
Yeah. A real web. So it's not just a matter of somebody, oh gee, I care about this organization. I'll write my $50 check and I've done my good for the year. You know, or I went to the one workshop on invasives. I did my thing for the year. It's got to be more, I think, connected and more of a web in order for it to be strong and effective for the future. But what the magic wand is to make that all happen is a big challenge.
Before we move on from talking about community partnerships, I'd like to move into town government relationships. But I just want to make sure that if anyone has anything to add on, I think, Jenny, I think you wrapped it up really well. I think there's a challenge and an opportunity there. So if anyone else has anything to add, we will move on to thinking about town government. I'm thinking, when I talk about town government, I'm thinking pretty broad here. We've got great relationships with the 5 watershed towns that have the 5 primary watershed towns. We're reaching out regularly to the select boards, planning boards, conservation commissions, road agents. So trying to get both staff, town staff, and municipal boards involved. With the select board, we're working on potential stormwater management projects. With planning boards, we're working on new land use regulations, site plan, subdivision, zoning ordinance changes that help to protect water quality. And with the conservation commissions, we've been reaching out to try and connect our AmeriCorps program, our AmeriCorps members, with potential service projects in each of the watershed towns. That's just kind of a quick summary. Actually, one of my favorite things is connecting with road agents, because they know culverts, erosion problems, all the roads better than anyone else in each town. So what can we do better? What are we doing well? What are the opportunities, the future? And, you know, same questions, but different group we're looking at now. Any suggestions or ideas from the group? I know we've got a couple conservation commissioners in the in the group? I know we've got at least one planning board member. Any challenges that you're dealing with in your town that NLRA should be aware of? Let me go back to my my list of other things. Let's see.
Rebecca, I have
Oh, yeah.
one thing.
Go ahead.
So speaking as a Bristol resident and member of the Sustainability Committee, I think that, you know, we'd love to have NLRA involved somehow, partner with us. We just sort of learned, I suspected this would have been the case, but as a town committee, we really can't do advocacy work. So, for example, this year, our committee has done a lot of work on researching how to get recycling back in Bristol. We're now faced with not being able to really advocate for that. We can put information out there, but it has to be in a really specific way. Related to that, I've always kind of wished personally that NLRA did more advocacy. I think mostly because when there's issues that come up locally, you know, you can sort of maybe hear both sides, but it would be nice to know as a trusted source, NLRA can endorse this or not endorse it, provide reasons why, almost take the politics out of it. I guess you can never take the politics out of things, but I feel like NLRA would be a good voice to do that. And I think that, you know, for the Sustainability Committee, it would maybe make a good partnership there too, if it was the right kind of fit, something for NLRA to advocate for. That could be an ongoing collaboration.
Great. Yeah, I think that's something I've heard similar feedback from others, so that's good information, especially with a specific example. You know, I work with the Board of Trustees to write a position, so it's not just us as a staff. We're all trying to get on board with a similar position, and trying to streamline our process for doing so as well. So it's not something that we have to think about for weeks and weeks and weeks. We can just move forward with ideas and look for things that do align with our mission. So other thoughts on advocacy, issues to get involved with?
Well, how can you not have advocacy? I'm stunned. Why are you not allowed to have an organization that can advocate for particular things?
So for the Sustainability Committee, because it's a town position, the town cannot say, you know, you should vote this way. So, for example, there will be a warrant article at this year's Bristol Town Meeting, whether or not to purchase equipment to basically bring back recycling. The committee had put all this work into creating a pamphlet with information about, you know, just questions and answers that people may have about this warrant article. And we were told, the town's attorney looked at it and basically said, you know, because you are encouraging people to vote a certain way, you're not allowed to do that. So, yeah. So that's the challenge for us as a committee. I agree. It sounds crazy. At the same time, I get it in some ways. So
No, it is crazy. I mean, I understand the legal limitations of things, but to be the committee you are, advocating for what you are, is what you're all about. It's just insanity. Holy cow. I mean, that'd be like the transfer station saying we can't encourage people to bring their junk here, their stuff. Please don't put it in here because we're a town organization, so we can't tell you to ask you to do it.
Yeah. So as we're speaking about it, I'll just say, Rebecca, that a very specific example is a couple years ago when Bristol was looking at extending its sewer to the lake, from the lake, however you want to say it. That was something that for me, I felt like I needed more information from a source other than the project engineers. And they really were the ones who had the most information about it. You know, other people could talk about the impact on their taxes, but I was really hoping that NLRA would come out at that time with a, yes, this is actually going to improve the quality the lake, or, you know, this might be a good thing, but the actual quality, we don't foresee improving that much. So that's a really specific example of potentially an opportunity to advocate.
And I will tell you, stay tuned on that one. I'm working with the board. I know that this is an ongoing issue. We do have to be careful as far as what we can advocate for, because we certainly, as a not-for-profit organization, we also can't tell people how to vote for things. So we have to be careful with that as well. But we do intend to be a resource for, especially the Bristol Select Board. Or I've got to get the board on board before I say too much more. But yes, the sewer in particular, that's the sewer line. That is a project that I think that we can certainly look into further. So, yeah, thank you. Ken.
When you're talking about advocacy, sometimes it's almost a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation. A lot of you have been around here long enough to remember issues that we have been involved in or have not been involved in. And we've had some problems because we were involved or we weren't involved. We have a very broad membership. And if we, well, I mean, the sewer issue is now percolating right along. And if we say, this is the greatest thing that can happen to the lake, well, then there may be, and I'm just theorizing here, there could be a huge group of homeowners who are impacted negatively by the cost, and they're in different sections of Bristol, and they may say, so 200 members drop out. So it's a fine line, and we do have our mission. Our mission was very well stated what it is. It's protecting the the lake, the watershed, and with education, etc. So it's a fine line. It's a difficult one to advocate for one position and not another. So it's tricky.
Other comments on advocacy, since we're circling around that issue a little bit in a good way. I do see a note here that partners as far as government goes, not just road agents, but DOT, and certainly our partnerships with state agencies is important as well. We receive regular funding through Department of Environmental Services for our watershed planning implementation. And we do work with DOT as well for some stormwater projects, and working with them now on trying to figure out what to plant and what kind of signage for the corner of that West Shore Road and 3A there, right at that intersection. So we had some volunteers go out and weed that. I think some of those volunteers are here, yeah, so we do have an active partnership with DOT, and I think they're important partners as well. So, other comments? Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Rebecca, we haven't mentioned Fish and Game.
Oh yeah.
And we big partnership with them. We worked in over a couple of years in identifying all of the culverts that would go into the lake. And then what was it, 2 years ago, our AmeriCorps people went out and went to individual culverts where there were problems with fish getting through. And I just sort of get on the outside of these things, but I know about them, but not in detail. So.
Yeah, that project it's worth mentioning because it's sort of, I guess it's bureaucracy at its best. And I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. Instead of having every agency go out and assess culverts for different reasons, so DES is concerned about stormwater and how much erosion is happening. Homeland Security is worried about infrastructure weaknesses. Same with DOT. Fish and Game is worried about aquatic organism passage. They created one structure to assess all those culverts, so that one person can go and take all the measurements and it will serve all 4 different agencies. So we work with Fish and Game on that. So we have what I was told by Fish and Game is a complete set of all the road crossings. When I met with a road agent in Groton, he pointed out a lot of culverts that weren't on there because he knows the roads better than anyone else. So we've got, between our work with Fish and Game and the work with the road agents, we certainly get a good handle on culvert function throughout the watershed. We're also working with Fish and Game since they are the owners of the Kimball Hill property, which is up in Groton, and we're seeing a bunch of erosion that happened after that July 2019 storm. So we're going to be working with them to draw up some engineering plans to hopefully put the Atwell Brook back in its original stream channel, so it won't be contributing so much sediment to the lake. So that's another Fish and Game project right there. So state agencies are certainly, they are the managers of a lot of our natural resources and a natural partner, and in some cases a funding source as well. So. All right. So we get about 10 minutes left. A couple questions that I have remaining, and I want to give a couple minutes at the end just to sort of wrap it up and tell you what our next steps are. My remaining questions, and I'm going to read them off, so please feel free to just address any of them. I'd like to think about a volunteer engagement, what kind of opportunities we have for our volunteers, what kind of volunteer opportunities are people looking for, how to connect with more individuals, more families, and I would love to know about how we can engage more with the voting community. I think there's a lot of people who vote on Newfound that are connected with us, but there's a lot of people who aren't. So those are kind of my remaining 3 questions. Anyone have any ideas surrounding any of those? I'd love to hear them.
Well, engaging families is something that we're working at, a small group of us in Alexandria. And given the fantastic snow we've had just in the last 2 days, we've come up with the idea of having an Alexandria Winter Festival Day, just a 1-day thing where we have 4 or 5 activities: snowshoeing up at the on the Peelers trails, skiing on trails in one of our fields, a cookout somewhere in the central part of town, maybe in the church yard or something else down in Bog Park. And so have a day-long thing in which there are 4 or 5 different outdoor winter activities that will bring families together onto parts of Alexandria in wintertime that would be a positive experience, a small one-shot thing. But by engaging families in one thing like this, maybe that can expand further. We're trying to pull this together quickly while there's good snow and so forth. It may or may not fly, but it's if we had sort of town groups that had their winter festival day. I mean, low key, potluck kind of cookouts, et cetera, et cetera. I'm hoping that we'll get a feel for families that we don't normally interact with. And if we get a group of families, and Hebron does, and Bridgewater did or something, that could be a start of something. It's a sort of a very recent idea, and it's probably going to be pulled together by 2 or 3 people. And do we have time to do it and to do it well? I don't know. But I think it's worth a try. And small things like that, getting families involved that are more oriented that way to families. I mean, everybody loves s'mores and a cookout, so do it in winter. It adds an extra excitement. Where around here are there opportunities to have an organized festival like snowshoe and cross-country ski thing? I haven't really seen it. I think there's an adult snowshoe group that meets once a month, but that's kind of a different slant. So in terms of getting family involvement, I think that's a direction some of us in Alexandria are going to scramble to do. And then you could maybe do it 4 seasons of the year.
Great.
I don't know. Does that sound lame?
So before I was with NLRA, I worked at the Squam Lakes Association, and I don't know if they're running one this year, but they were running a Winterfest event every year, which was bringing in hundreds of people, really. So it seems like people are looking for that kind of engagement, especially this year. But
Yeah, outdoors, yeah.
Yep. So.
And there used to be skating down in Kelly Park, which I think was a really well-attended event at one point as well. So you can bring that, type of thing into it as well.
Yeah.
Any other, I remember I'm the chair of the Plymouth Planning Board, so I was about to ask if there's any other items unrelated to tonight's agenda. But is there anything else that we, I gave a list of a few questions that are remaining unanswered right now, but any other comments of a general nature, or, anything else that we should think about around community engagement in the Newfound watershed? Martha?
Somebody mentioned, you mentioned the connection to the boating community, and I think that's a really, really important one. Part of that can come through your working with the various condo communities and cottage colonies, and it's an ongoing education and changing people every year, but that's one facet of it. The other is get out on the eco tour boats and sell ice cream to all the boaters hanging around out there, and talk up membership and familiarity. Are they aware of the organization? Do they know what's going on Newfound Lake? So I know a lot are coming from a ways away and launching at Wellington State Park, but I think boat ownership on the lake has also risen dramatically in the last 5 years, particularly. And it's a good way to get feedback too. And everybody loves ice cream.
Yep. Lure them in with some ice cream. That's great. Right. Thank you, Audrey. Businesses, that was on my list to connect with as well. I know we have one business owner in the group this evening. In the past, we've connected with businesses a lot through our raffle, which we weren't able to run last year because of COVID. Would love to hear about the importance of business partnerships, the future of business partnerships, any ideas folks have around working with our area businesses. I think our businesses, it's, the lake, in my opinion, is kind of the economic backbone of this community, and it draws an enormous number of people to this area and brings business to the area as well. So I think it's a natural partnership. The organization is concerned about lake health and the area businesses. So, any ideas around that? All right. Well, this doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Oh, sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
It's okay. I know that Bristol, I think this might have been right before you started, Rebecca, but Bristol worked with UNH Extension to do sort of an ecotourism study. It might be interesting to see, and I can probably pull up the results that UNH had. It might be interesting to look at that, but I guess I'm thinking, businesses are really appreciative, obviously, when people come to Bristol, outside people. So I feel like some of the work that NLRA is doing is you're attracting visitors to the area. I don't know how that's a connection with businesses or how it can be a sort of formal relationship, but maybe starting to think about it in that way of, how is the work you're already doing benefiting them, and maybe vice versa. I'm not sure, just a thought.
Great. All right, please interrupt me because I'm going to start wrapping things up, but please interrupt me if anyone has anything else to add. I don't want to stifle and end the conversation if folks still have things to say, but also want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I am going to share my screen. And as much time as I spend on Zoom, it always takes me a second to do this. All right, so this doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Please get in touch with me if you have anything else to contribute anytime. It doesn't have to be just around our strategic planning process or about community engagement. But please reach out to me anytime with further ideas. And I think this has been, I've got pages of notes already, and I'm not even the note taker for the evening. But we do have a note taker tonight, so we will be putting together these thoughts in a place where other people can access them. We'll also be sharing the recording, so if you want to relive the past hour, you'll have that opportunity. And if anything comes up, please let me know if you have any other ideas. We also have a survey. We've had close to 130 participants in the survey, but it's asking a lot of these same questions. So we'd love to hear, if you haven't already taken that survey, please put your feedback there. You can access that right from the homepage of our website. And this is just the beginning of our workshop discussion series. Next week, we'll be talking about watershed and lake environmental health. We have a session on education, and then we'll be focusing on our Grey Rocks Conservation Area property on the first Wednesday in March. So we'd love to have your participation there, but please reach out if you have any other questions. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can just say thank you to everyone. I will follow up with all that information in an email as well to all participants. So, anything else from the group before we sign off?
Thank you.
Right, well, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us tonight. It's nice to see all of you and meet some of you, I think, for the first time. So thanks for coming out and spending an hour with us this evening. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.